The room crackled with tension as the debate began, the air thick with anticipation. Cameras rolled, capturing every flicker of expression, every shift in posture, as Robert Garcia and Carolina Leavitt prepared to clash. At the center of it all, the moderator, maintaining the delicate balance between control and chaos, introduced the topic with measured authority. It was a debate that had been brewing for months: government efficiency, corporate influence, and the ever-expanding power of Elon Musk. But beneath the surface, this was something more. This was about dominance, about who could tear the other down, who could leave a lasting wound. Garcia, leaning back with the easy confidence of a man who had thrown countless verbal punches and relished every single one, was the first to speak. His smirk carried the weight of an inevitable strike, a well-rehearsed but effortless blow. Biggest concern? Well, besides the fact that we now have billionaires basically writing our policies, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, as they hilariously named it, seems less about efficiency and more about handing Elon Musk the keys to the country. We've got a man who already controls space travel, communication, networks, and now wants to dictate how the government functions. It's not efficiency, it's corporate capture. His words dripped with calculated disdain, each syllable a hammering pulse of accusation. Leavitt, unfazed, countered with the sharp precision of someone who had spent a lifetime weaving words into shields. She leaned forward, her smirk matching his in intensity but colder, sharper. "Oh, Robert, you're so predictable. Every time you speak, it's like watching a late-night comedy show that forgot to be funny. You act like Elon Musk is some evil villain from a sci-fi movie, but let's be real. He's creating solutions while you're out here tweeting insults. The DOGE is about cutting bureaucracy, reducing waste, and making sure taxpayer dollars aren't funding bloated government nonsense." Her voice carried that perfect blend of sarcasm and authority, the kind that made supporters cheer and opponents seethe. Garcia didn't flinch. He thrived in the storm, and this was his kind of weather. Raising an eyebrow, he shot back with a casual air as if they were merely exchanging pleasantries. "Ah, right. Because nothing screams cutting waste like letting an unaccountable billionaire dictate policy. Next, are we privatizing the military too? Maybe SpaceX can run the Pentagon while we're at it?" The audience reacted, a mix of laughter and murmured dissent. It was the kind of line designed to stick, to linger in the air long after the words themselves had faded. Leavitt grinned, tilting her head slightly, her expression one of exaggerated patience. "Oh, please, Robert. Unlike you, we're actually getting things done. While you're busy whining on CNN, we're implementing policies that actually matter." There was venom beneath the surface, the kind that didn't need volume to wound. Her tone alone carried the blade. Garcia, never one to miss an opening, seized the moment. "Fixing things? Oh, I see. By fixing things, you mean handing government control over to a man who already considers himself above it? That's not fixing, that's surrendering. You're not building efficiency, Carolina. You're just writing love letters to Elon Musk in the form of government policy." Leavitt's smirk twitched, her fingers tapping against the table in a silent rhythm. She was calculating, measuring the exact dose of scorn required for her rebuttal. But before she could speak, the moderator intervened, reminding them, gently but firmly, to keep things civil. Neither of them acknowledged the warning. The battle had only just begun. The temperature in the room had shifted. No longer just a debate, but a battlefield where words were weapons and pride was the ultimate prize. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of tension between them, every barely concealed smirk, every tightened jaw. The moderator, sensing the electricity in the air, steered the discussion toward the inevitable flashpoint: Elon Musk. His name alone was enough to ignite fireworks between Robert Garcia and Carolina Leavitt. This was no longer about policies or efficiency. This was about power, who wielded it, who enabled it, and who was willing to fight it. Leavitt was the first to strike, her voice steady, her tone perfectly balanced between authority and mockery. "Let's cut through the drama here. Elon Musk isn't some shadow president pulling the strings. He's an innovator, a businessman, and yes, he's advising the administration on making the government more efficient. That's a good thing. You Democrats love to demonize success. If Musk were donating billions to liberal causes, Robert here would be singing his praises. She let the words hang in the air, knowing exactly how they would land, knowing the reaction they would provoke. Garcia leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his smile that of a man who had heard this argument before and relished tearing it apart. Oh, give me a break. You really think Musk is just advising? The man literally issued a memo, demanding weekly reports from federal employees like they're his personal interns. He's not advising, he's micromanaging. And let's not forget, this is the same guy who cozies up to Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene while undermining democratic institutions. You call that efficiency? I call it oligarchy. His voice was calm, controlled, but beneath the surface there was fire. Leavitt didn't blink. She had been waiting for this, had anticipated his exact words and prepared her counterattack with surgical precision. Oh, the horror. A businessman helping the government function better. Look, Robert, not everyone enjoys living in a bureaucratic nightmare like you apparently do. Maybe if you spent less time grandstanding and more time working on actual solutions, we wouldn't need Musk's help in the first place. The smirk returned, that signature expression of hers that always teetered between amusement and condescension. Garcia laughed, shaking his head as if he had just heard the most ridiculous thing imaginable. Right, because the solution to government inefficiency is just letting a billionaire run things? Brilliant logic, Carolina. What's next? Selling congressional seats on Twitter? The audience murmured, some chuckling, others whispering, the tension in the room thickening with every passing second. It was a performance, a masterful exchange of verbal blows, neither side willing to yield. Leavitt, never one to be outmaneuvered, tilted her head slightly, her expression one of exaggerated thoughtfulness. You love throwing around these scare tactics, Robert, but at the end of the day, all you're doing is proving my point. You don't actually care about efficiency or reform. You care about keeping power in the hands of career politicians like yourself while pretending to fight for the people. The reality is the American people are tired of empty rhetoric. They want action. They want results. And that's exactly what this administration is delivering. Her voice was steady, unshaken, the kind of tone that made her supporters nod in agreement and her opponents seethe with frustration. Garcia exhaled, sharply, shaking his head, the smirk still playing at the edges of his lips. Oh, I care about power, Carolina. I care about who holds it, who manipulates it, and who gets to buy their way into it. And right now, your party and your billionaire benefactors are doing exactly that. So spare me the lecture on action when all you're really doing is signing over democracy to the highest bidder. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, watching her, waiting for the next move. Leavitt's fingers tapped against the table in a slow, deliberate rhythm. She was measuring, calculating, the flicker in her eyes betraying nothing but an unwavering sense of certainty. This wasn't a debate she planned to lose. The battle raged on, and neither was willing to back down. The next round was coming, and the stakes had never been higher. The room was a battleground now, no longer a debate but a war of wills where neither side could afford to retreat. Every word was a calculated strike, every retort a shield against the onslaught. The audience, riveted, had long since stopped murmuring among themselves. They were witnesses to something rare, something electric. Two political heavyweights, locked in a verbal duel where only one could walk away unscathed. The moderator, now reduced to a referee desperately trying to keep the fight within the bounds of decorum, turned the discussion toward the heart of the issue, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Garcia leaned in slightly, his tone shifting from amused to razor-sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. Let's be real. This isn't about efficiency. This is about consolidating power into the hands of a few. When you gut federal agencies under the guise of efficiency, what you're really doing is eliminating oversight, checks and balances, and, oh yeah, worker protections. The DOGE is a Trojan horse for deregulation and corporate dominance. It's a blank check for billionaires like Musk to reshape the government in their own image. His words landed heavy, precise, each syllable designed to slice through the defenses of his opponent. Leavitt, however, was prepared. Her smirk was gone now, replaced by an expression of cool defiance, the kind of look worn by someone who had walked into the fire and planned to walk out the other side untouched. That's rich. Coming from you, Robert. The same Democrats who love wasting taxpayer money on redundant departments are now suddenly concerned about oversight. Let's not pretend you care about government efficiency. You care about maintaining the bloated bureaucratic machine that lets career politicians like yourself sit around and collect a paycheck while real innovators, like Musk, are actually solving problems. Garcia scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. Oh, come on, Carolina. You don't actually believe that, do you? This isn't about cutting waste. It's about giving people like Musk a free pass to dismantle government structures that protect ordinary Americans. Efficiency doesn't mean stripping away regulations meant to keep corporations in check. It doesn't mean handing policy-making power to a billionaire who sees government as nothing more than another business to control. Efficiency means making government work for the people, not for the highest bidder. Leavitt didn't so much as blink. Nice try, Robert, but I'm not the one taking marching orders from corporate lobbyists. Unlike you, I'm here to fix a broken system, not just throw tantrums about it on national television. We are cutting through the red tape, breaking the cycle of government waste and making sure that American taxpayers aren't footing the bill for outdated bureaucracy. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? Because for you, government, inefficiency is a feature, not a bug. Garcia's smile returned, but it was different now. Colder, sharper, the kind of smile that signaled he was about to strike. Fixing things? That's what you're calling it? Funny, because from where I'm standing, all I see is a Republican Party so desperate to stay relevant that it's handing the keys to a man who doesn't even respect democracy. You're not cutting red tape, Carolina. You're setting fire to the entire system and handing the ashes to Elon Musk like it's some kind of prize. And the best part? You don't even realize you're just a pawn in his game. For the first time, a flicker of something, perhaps anger, perhaps something deeper, crossed Leavitt's face. But she recovered instantly, her posture unshaken, her voice unwavering. That's the difference between you and me, Robert. You sit on the sidelines pointing fingers, crying about billionaires while offering zero solutions. I actually get things done. Garcia leaned back, crossing his arms, watching her, measuring the moment. Right. If by getting things done, you mean selling off democracy piece by piece, then sure, Carolina, you're doing a fantastic job. The tension in the room was suffocating now, the kind that made the air feel heavier, the silence between their words more deafening than the words themselves. The battle was reaching its peak, and neither was willing to be the first to blink. The next round would decide everything. The air was thick with unspoken tension, the kind that made every breath feel heavier, every silence more deafening than the words that preceded it. The room had become a crucible, heated by the sheer force of the battle between Robert Garcia and Carolina Leavitt. Their voices, their expressions, their very presence had turned this debate into something far greater than a simple exchange of ideas. This was a fight for dominance, a contest of raw political force, and as the final round began, neither was willing to yield an inch. The moderator, sensing the debate had veered past the point of controlled discourse, attempted to regain control. We're running out of time, so let's wrap this up. Final words? The question was simple, but the weight of it was enormous. This was the moment where narratives were solidified, where victories were declared, not by the debaters themselves, but by the millions watching, judging, deciding whose words would echo long after the cameras stopped rolling. Garcia leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his expression that of a man who had played this game before and had no intention of losing it now. Yeah, Carolina, you can dress this up however you like, but the reality is your party and your billionaire buddies are turning democracy into a joke. You defend Musk like he's some misunderstood genius, but all he's doing is consolidating power. And you're right there playing defense for him, pretending it's about efficiency. It's embarrassing. His voice was calm, but beneath it was a simmering intensity, a barely contained storm waiting to break. Leavitt, who had weathered every strike, every attempt to rattle her, finally allowed a flicker of something different. Disgust, frustration, or perhaps just exhaustion at the relentless assault. But if Garcia had expected her to falter, he was mistaken. Her voice, colder now, sharper than before, cut through the air like a scalpel. "You know what's embarrassing, Robert? Watching a grown man act like a petulant child because he lost the argument. You scream about democracy, but what you really hate is that the American people are tired of your side's failures. We're actually fixing things while you just whine on TV." Her words were deliberate, each one carefully chosen to land like a knife between the ribs. Garcia exhaled, shaking his head, a laugh escaping as if he couldn't quite believe what he was hearing. "Fixing things? Oh, please. The only thing you're fixing is Elon Musk's public image. You're not a press secretary. You're a billionaire's PR puppet." The words were blunt, brutal, the kind that left no room for interpretation. Leavitt's eyes narrowed, her patience, her carefully crafted composure finally reaching its limit. The rhythm of her fingers tapping against the table stopped, her posture stiffened, and in a voice laced with pure, unfiltered disdain, she leaned in slightly, letting the words drop like a hammer. "You are a dick." The audience gasped. The moderator's eyes widened in horror. For a moment, everything froze, Garcia's expression unreadable, the cameras capturing every inch of the explosion that had just taken place. It wasn't just the words themselves, but the way they had been delivered, the final unfiltered crack in Leavitt's carefully controlled facade. Garcia, after a brief pause, let out a slow chuckle, shaking his head as if savoring the moment. "Wow, that's the best argument you've got? That's your big finale?" He leaned back, arms crossed, victorious in the way only someone who had just provoked his opponent into breaking their cool could be. Leavitt, realizing what had happened, set her jaw, but it was too late. The damage had been done. The headlines were already being written, the clips already being trimmed for viral moments, the internet already ablaze with reactions. And just like that, the battle was over. Not because one side had proven itself superior in argument, but because in the world of political theater, perception was reality. The war of words had reached its crescendo, and now all that remained was the fallout.